This goes all the way back to George Berkeley, one of those Enlightenment era philosophers we were talking about. And he talked about all of these sense impressions that we're experiencing, things like light, color, sound, taste, texture, weight, pressure. All of that is occurring inside of our heads. That's not happening in the outside world. And it's not that things in the external world from us don't have weight and form and mass and those sorts of things, but all these qualities like taste, touch, texture, pressure, that is a subjective experience that we are interpreting waves that are coming in through our sense perceptions, and we're interpreting them into meaningful things in our mind. And that's what I meant earlier when I talk about perception is reality, is because your reality is taking place inside your head. And even if there is a reality happening out there somewhere, that's not the one you're participating in. You're participating in the one that you have brought inside, and that is the world in which you live and interact and move. Our perception is our reality. Little p perception equals little p reality. That's what we all have. Capital P perception equals capital R reality. And in my opinion, only God has that type of perception, where he perceives all things all the times, so he has absolute objective reality. Since we only perceive limited things in a set period of time, we have very tiny realities or perceptions of the world. And I don't know if you guys were paying attention when these two came through, but these were kind of like social media viral discussions people were arguing about. And in that first picture on the left is a picture of a dress. And the question is it white and gold or blue and black? And then another one came out a few months later with this tennis shoe, which asks, is it a pink and white or a gray and teal tennis shoe? And as I'm reading that description, you're probably looking at me because one of them was so clear to you right off the bat. And you're saying, how could people possibly have seen the other? So in the dress picture, how many of you saw white and gold? One, two, three. And how many of you saw it as black and blue? Only one of you, two of you. How interesting. And what about the shoes? How many of you saw it as white and pink? Did anyone see it as teal? Yeah, and I mean, it's so interesting the way our minds or our brains will take in. And this is part of that point the guy in the video was saying is we could both point at something and both call it blue or yellow or green, but what we're actually seeing in our heads could be wildly different than what the person next to you is seeing. And I think this is absolutely fascinating.
I was just wondering, couldn't that just like I don't really know what those colors were because I know that they're supposed to be different than what I'm seeing. I've seen the dress one before in like a bachelor's cognition class, but doesn't that have like entirely to do with lighting, but they are objectively one certain set of colors?
Yes,
Like
some has to do with lighting and some has to do with our brains or our minds. And our brains will often fill in information that is not actually there too. I didn't pull up this example, but it would be easy to find. Someone took a black and white picture and then put a colored grid over it, but the grid was made up of different colors. It wasn't like a solid color. And your mind, when you look at this black and white picture, you can make out flesh tones, you can make out different colored shirts and hair and all, but none of that's in the picture. It's just this superimposed grid over the top. Let me show you another example. what color are the spheres? And it looks like we've got red spheres, blue spheres, green spheres. But when you really start looking at them, you begin to realize, oh my goodness, all of these spheres are the same color.
Whoa.
But it has to
No
do,
way. How?
yeah, they're all the same color tan, but because of the way the grid lines are over them, our mind is like filling in the spaces and it making it appear as colors to us.
He speaks the truth.
It's so strange. And so I talked to you last week when I talked about how we all live in our own little realities. And I don't think that's something to be afraid of, but I think it's important to be aware of. And especially when you're having a hard time communicating with someone else, it's not necessarily because they're dumb or slow or you're not very good at communicating. It simply is they are literally living in a different reality than you are. And so you have to make a bridge of some means to try and enter in and communicate, like I'm trying to do with all these little Hollywood squares in here.
Professor Blackman, therefore, with that small portion, now I can see how our judgment, the judgment system, I forget the word. Justice. Oh my gosh, yeah. The justice system is so not, not good, because now is everything is sort of like it goes to the illustration of the colors and the skin tones and everything, and just like, wow. Now I can appreciate the judges more than before, because it's really difficult to make a right decision with all those assumptions and witnesses, eyewitnesses actually.
And at least in the American justice system, depending on the type of trial or crime it is, often a big part of the conviction or what degree of punishment has to do with intention, which means you have to get into the other person's world and figure out what they intended. Was it innocent? Was it malicious? Were they simply not being thoughtful? Was it misguided? But that's such an interior working, right? And unless someone gives you a confession, it's really hard to say what was going on in that person's head or what was motivating the factors. But the difference between first and second degree murder is motive, right? Whether it was intentional or it was a crime of passion or manslaughter, which would be unintentional. And so intention has a big deal, but that is something closely locked inside each one of us unless we share it. And we may not even be self-aware enough to know our own motives or intentions at times. And so it makes it very difficult. Also, since you brought up the legal system, and I would tack on the political system and religious system and all these other systems to go with it, is it becomes a war of narratives. And this is back to Nietzsche. Each group is trying to impose their view of reality upon you, whether that's evangelical Christians or Marxist or Muslims or whoever. They have a certain view of the world and reality, and they're trying to get you to buy into that subset. Now take that to your world of mental health and psychology and counseling. You are proposing to your clients that, hey, I'm a healthy person, I live in a healthy world, and I can help bring you here. But that's quite a claim, right? First of all, are you healthy? How sure are you of your own reality and the world you live? And are you able to help bring someone else from their world into another? And so these become really pertinent questions. But you can see why people would be so resistant to giving up their autonomy and their narrative to someone else, whether it's religion, politics, legal system, whatever it is, because we really cling to our point of view because that is our basis of reality. Questions, comments?